Prime Minister Robert Fico was fighting for his life after being shot multiple times following a government meeting in central Slovakia on Wednesday. Now, the Prime Minister regained consciousness after an hours-long surgery.
Well, currently he is in a stable but still very serious condition. And with us now to talk about Prime Minister and the general situation in Slovakia is Ján Michalčák, political scientist who also specializes in Russian influence operations. Good evening.
Good evening. Pleasure to be here.
So there's something that puzzles me because right after the assassination attempt, multiple conspiracy theories emerged on Slovakian social media. Who's spreading them? Do we know that already?
That's a great question. And obviously, as you most likely know, it is very difficult to pinpoint the source of such conspiracies or even false information, because there's, of course, a distinction. And I would probably split those in pertaining to the assassination attempt on Fico into two categories. We have the first category, which is conspiracies that are most likely spread out of a lack of knowledge or a lack of reliable information. Because just remind your viewers, as you would also probably expect, right after the assassination attempt, there are a lot of competing pseudo-facts and claims on social media and even by sources that are otherwise considered quite reliable. To give you an example, there was a claim at one point that Fico was even shot in the head, which was not luckily confirmed in the end. There was a claim late at night that the Prime Minister is in a coma, which of course didn't materialize in the end either, which is fortunate for the Prime Minister. And then there is a second category of conspiracies, which I would not be afraid to call conspiracies at all. And those are most likely spread with the intent to seriously harm and further weaken the unity of the EU and the European peoples in the respective member states. We've heard claims from people with a serious following even that the assassination attempt was linked to Fico's recent refusal to sign a WHO negotiated deal to tackle a future possible pandemic together, which Fico refused. And most importantly, ultimately, there is this prevalent claim that this whole thing is linked to Fico's reluctance to support Ukraine. As you know, Fico is more on the side of Russia in its aggression against Ukraine. He has in the past spread Kremlin-propagated conspiracies, such as that the war had been started by purported Ukrainian Nazis. And this is the major conspiracy that has been floated on social media and by some prominent figures for the past 24 hours.
Many well-told theories indeed.
Well, that's true. But however, both sides of the political spectrum in Slovakia right now are blaming each other for this case. Now, it always starts internally. However, and I guess either side is not benefiting from this, but who is benefiting from this chaos in the country?
As I said, it is hard to pinpoint who is the author of those conspiracies, and I will not be naming any names, but your question, who is benefiting, is much more straightforward to answer. And we've seen Russia in the past benefiting on multiple occasions, again and again, from either directly spreading or nurturing conspiracies, be it about the war against Ukraine or other similar topics. It doesn't really matter what the topic is, as long as it aims to weaken the EU, as I already explained. To give a quite recent example from Czechia, where I'm sitting right now, a month ago or so, the Czech counterintelligence service, the BIS, actually busted a Russian-run and financed pseudo-media network called Voice of Europe. That had been giving space and even money to people willing to spread Kremlin propaganda. This has been proven by the Czech counterintelligence, and now Voice of Europe will be placed on the EU's sanctions list. There is no doubt at all in my mind that Russia is indeed benefiting from whatever conspiracy pertaining to the Fico case, because, as I said, it leads to the weakening of the EU.
Right. Now, some are afraid that it is just the beginning of a major turmoil in Slovakia, because shortly after these expressions of shock and grief, they were followed by mutual accusations, and so there's this spiral of violence. It very much seems that it's spinning out of control. So how can the situation escalate in Slovakia?
Unfortunately, you're right, but I would hope that the situation indeed doesn't escalate, because it would be detrimental to Slovakia, and you could even say that to the EU as a whole. Because as I explained in the previous answer, it would be Russia and other adversaries of the EU that would benefit the most if the situation does indeed escalate. So we should do everything it takes for it not to escalate. And of course, there have been mutual accusations, but I hope and really wholeheartedly hope that it was mainly caused by the sudden influx of emotions, because again, obviously, it was an unexpected and shocking situation. And there have been calls by both sides of the political spectrum to calm the situation down. So I hope those are heeded by the general population, because the opposite would be devastating for Slovakia. I don't even want to imagine what the consequences could be. So hope it doesn't come to that, and hope that all sides will calm down and work as one to strengthen Slovakia, because that's what the country needs right now.
Mm-hmm. Now, Peter Pellegrini called for suspension or even ending elections campaign that are happening right now. How is this going to be received by the political parties in Slovakia?
I think, on the one hand, it is key that Peter Pellegrini did so, and it is even more important that the outgoing president, who is still serving, Zuzana Čaputová, has called for a joint meeting with representatives of all political parties in the presidential palace. The president-elect Pellegrini will also participate. Although those two are from the opposite sides of the political spectrum, there are signs of them cooperating to calm the situation down, which is key, and that's really what Slovakia needs. Because just to remind your viewers, Slovakia is one of the countries in the EU that is, unfortunately, I have to say, the most receptive to Russian propaganda. Successive polls have showed this. We have empirical data showing that the Slovaks are those who trust the EU the least, who consider Russia their strategic partner, much more so than they do consider the US, for example, a strategic partner, or the main players in the EU, be it Poland, be it Germany, be it France. They consider Russia to be the main quasi-friend of Slovakia, with whom they should be cooperating the most. So that could, to return to your question, that could escalate, because the Kremlin is using it not only through the conspiracy theories that I mentioned, but also the Russian President Putin already sent a telegram right after the assassination attempt to Čaputová, expressing his discontent over the situation, which of course nobody really cares about except for his proponents, for his fans. And in Slovakia, unfortunately, there's a lot of those. And that, even the telegram, however harmless it may seem, that further serves to weaken Slovak society. So again, signs like that by Pellegrini and Čaputová to try to cooperate and bring all sides of the spectrum together are a hopeful sign, and I really sincerely hope that they will work out and bring the results that we all want.
Ján, just in 2 sentences, if you could answer my question, because after these appeals, we get the impression that politicians are actually afraid of more violence. They are afraid for themselves. Now, could these acts of violence erupt now in Slovakia? Shortly, please.
They could, unfortunately, if calm is not insisted on by all sides of the political spectrum. Slovakia is unfortunately no stranger to violent acts upon politicians, but an assassination attempt, a shooting of the serving prime minister, is luckily the exception now. And I would hope that it stays that way, because it is really, really out of character for the EU.
Ján Michalčák, a political scientist who also specializes on Russian influence operations, was our guest. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.